a lot of times people will think about their most immediate survival needs. That is the most important, thinking about getting out safely, following evacuation orders, all those things. But what most people aren't preparing for, aren't thinking about, is the aftermath when there are tons of legal issues. And I'll just give you a rundown of a few things that come up. One is after the disaster, there's lots of opportunities for scamming when your home repairs are needed. So you have to be really vigilant about vetting the people who swing by your neighborhood and offer to repair your roof, because that's not always the best choice for repairing your roof, is a fly-by-night. Another issue is housing. Should I pay rent when my apartment is destroyed? Should I do anything about my mortgage? Should I pay my mortgage if my house is destroyed?
Should you?
So it depends. Most of the time, the mortgage company wants you to immediately report, and they also want you to give them information about what your insurance coverage is.
Okay.
So, but most tenants will not be required to pay rent for a place that's uninhabitable.
Yeah.
It's a little different when you're owning the house and you're paying the bank. But those are all issues that people don't think of until afterwards. We saw a lot of those issues come up in Houston last year with Harvey, which was a big hurricane that parked and rained, and 40 inches of rain, something like that. So it's real important to think about what impact a natural disaster would have on your ability to pay your bills. And then creditors and negotiating with creditors, proving what you lost, proving what you spent while you were recovering from the disaster. So saving receipts from those expenses that you made the first few days after the disaster. You're not thinking about saving receipts. That's the last thing you would think of. But when you want to file a claim, the more evidence you have, the more photo evidence of the things that you've lost is going to be really important, makes it so much smoother, because the last thing you want after losing a lot of stuff is to have a battle with the insurance company. What the insurance companies want more than anything else is proof, proof, proof. They really want to see evidence of what did you lose? What was the condition of the property beforehand? So making a photo diary of your entire house, what it looks like, the outside, the inside, the condition of the floors and the walls and the ceilings, everything about your possessions, the serial numbers on your possessions, all of those can be photographed, but then the trick is saving those photographs somewhere secure. We had a lot of instances during Harvey in Houston where people would do all those photographs, and then when they were quickly leaving in an emergency, they stuck their phone in their pocket and they were wading through waist-high water, and that phone was destroyed with everything that they had put, because it was on the SIM card. So you would want to put it on the cloud and save it to somewhere like, email it to yourself so that it's stored somewhere in the cloud, or put your phone that you've recorded all of this information on in some kind of waterproof container. So those are the kind of things that you, again, don't really think of at the time, especially when it's in an emergency. So just like when you're preparing beforehand, everybody knows. We saw empty shelves with water and batteries and bread and milk and all those things. Start thinking about documenting your possessions and how you're going to save those recordings or pictures or photographs so that you can later on prove what you owned, what their condition was before the disaster, and then also what was lost and what the condition was after the disaster. How high did the water get? How long did the water stay in your house? All of the documentation of that, keeping a journal of what happened when, what kind of experiences you had, what expenses you had, those are going to be the kind of things that your insurance company, your mortgage company, your renter's insurance, all of those things will want to know those things.
Well, and this is what great advice for if you're in a hurricane area, but even if you're around here in a flood-prone area.
There's no question. Anytime, so a disaster can take any form. It can be a burst pipe in the winter that suddenly floods all of your documents. So you have to kind of think about protecting what you already have from a basic disaster, but also the portability of something. You can't walk down the road with your file cabinet on your back. Yeah. So you have to think about, how do I store this? What would be the most effective way to protect the information? One of the things that I've heard, I think was a great piece of advice, is at the very least write down your policy numbers of your insurance and the first page of your policy, so that you'll have that in your go bag and you'll just be ready to go and have those pieces of information. Many people waste time the first 2 or 3 or 4 days after an event just saying, who was my insurance agent? Yeah. It was this guy, I think his name was Jim. That's not going to help if you have all that information, because those are the people you are going to be in touch with constantly afterwards to file the claims, to do things appropriately. If it gets to the point where we're dealing with FEMA, it's even more important to document everything, to make sure that you've got a really detailed list of belongings, what expenses happened when, those kind of things are super critical.
And keep updating, especially if you're talking about pictures or things change.
And so most people should be looking at some kind of an update on June 1st. Why would June 1st be an important date? It's traditionally the beginning of hurricane season. So using June 1st or Memorial Day weekend or whatever, just the end of May, beginning of June, as your yearly check-in of, where are my documents? Do I have a go bag? Have I gotten enough water stored? Thinking about all the emergency kit that we've all been hearing about in the last few days, but also thinking ahead and saying, what would be the first few things I would need to do and to resolve legal issues? I need to have a copy of my lease, or a copy of my mortgage, or a copy of something that really explains what the roadmap is going to be for the next few weeks when you're recovering from a disaster. It's really the case these days that there's lots of different websites that you can go to get at least a start to your research. And that's another thing you can do in advance when you're not in the middle of a crisis, is to spend a little time researching and saying, what disaster relief programs am I eligible for? What's out there? One really great website is disasterlegalaid.org. It has a lot of just kind of clearinghouse of lots of legal information for low-income folks who would qualify for legal aid. Another general website from the U.S. government is disasterassistance.gov. And there's even a website in Virginia called virginia.freelegalanswers.org. And you can register, sign up on that website, and then you can ask any kind of legal question, and a lawyer, a pro bono lawyer, will come online and answer a quick question for you.